Hello, and welcome to Professional Development on the Intervention of Phoneme Segmentation Fluency. This PD is intended to pair with letter naming fluency and letter sound fluency in professional development, also recorded for you to access on demand. As we begin this PD, you'll notice some of the same slides that introduced letter naming and letter sound fluency PD as well. They began with the broad definition of the alphabetic principle. That is, the concept that letters match individual sounds in words. For letter naming, we spoke directly to the student's ability to name a grapheme or a symbol, as well as the student's ability to produce the sound of that symbol, both connected to phonics. As we move into this professional development, we'll be shifting from phonics focus to phonemic awareness focus. This is also a slide from the last PD telling us that the National Reading Panel identified the following to be the best predictors of how well children will learn to read in grades kindergarten and first. We discussed letter names and sounds in the prior PD, and we'll stick with phonemic awareness today. Correlation studies have identified that phonemic awareness and letter knowledge are the two best school entry predictors of how well children will learn to read during their first 2 years of school. And that is ironic that it says read. Just caught that mistake. Some National Reading Panel findings continued as they relate to phonemic awareness. As we look through these findings, we need to think of what they're sharing through our lens of intervention instruction rather than core instruction. We know with intervention, we're going to deal with specific gaps in skill or understanding. So the first bullet here, phonemic awareness instruction is most effective when the instruction is focused on one or two phonemic awareness skills rather than a multi-skilled approach. Blending and segmenting are the most powerful of those PA skills. So while we know that a multi-skilled approach should be happening in core, as interventionists, our focus is to stick to one or two, which would be explicit instruction. Children are taught in small groups, although instruction may be done with the whole class. This is true, and it can be very effective practice with the whole class, but as interventionists, we are working with small groups of students. Instruction is based on the student needs assessment, levels of difficulty, and specific skill proficiency. So not only do we perform initial assessments to identify exactly where the student is in their progression of phonemic awareness, but we also progress monitor those skills to see how the student is growing as we are providing explicit instruction. Children are taught to manipulate phonemes with letters. You won't see a check next to this bullet because at this point, phoneme segmentation fluency is not working with the skill of manipulating phonemes. We are working with the skill of segmenting phonemes. So this would not be happening in this particular intervention. Single sessions last no more than 30 minutes, although 20 to 30 minutes may be more realistic. Much like letter naming fluency and letter sound fluency, we will be scheduling phoneme segmentation fluency in 15-minute intervention blocks of time. Instruction makes explicit how children are to apply phonemic awareness skills in reading. Given that this particular intervention focuses in on phoneme segmentation fluency, our focus is not necessarily the overarching application of PA skills. We would find this more in core instruction. This slide was also from our previous PD, identifying the skills that occur within grades K and 1 that support students in learning to read, and where those particular skills fall in the National Reading Panel pillars, 5 pillars. We're talking today about phoneme segmentation fluency, which falls under the pillar of phonological awareness, And the National Reading Panel suggests that that be assessed by asking students to identify specific phonemes in orally presented words for a period of 1 minute. This is something we'll definitely cover in this professional development. I've included this quote from reading researcher Marilyn Adams. This quote really speaks to the complexity of phonemic awareness instruction and the need for us to be explicit and systematic as we teach the skills. Adams emphasizes that while phonemic awareness is essential for learning to read, it is not easily established, and children need explicit instruction to gain the necessary skills. This makes it extremely important for teachers to understand that there are various layers of phonemic awareness, and that each of these layers represents a skill that can be developed through targeted instruction and practice. These layers build from the simplest phonemic awareness skills at the bottom of the pyramid to the most complex at the top. So this quote speaks directly to explicit and systematic instruction. Let's take a closer look at this pyramid and the building of the skills. This is the systematic progression of phonemic awareness. Begins with the simplest skill and concept to the most complex. Our progression begins with phoneme isolation, blending, then moves to segmentation, and then the top of the pyramid represents manipulating phonemes through addition of phonemes, deletion of phonemes, and then the most complex being substitution of phonemes. Let's define each. Phoneme isolation. This is hearing and isolating the individual sounds in spoken words. This represents the first layer of phonemic awareness. It entails knowing that a word is made up of a sequence of sounds and that individual sounds and words can be divided or differentiated from one another. Beginning sound isolation activities are a great way to help students develop those phoneme isolation skills. So that beginning sound, that first sound, when we pull it off of a spoken word, the student is able to isolate the first sound, such as b in bear or s in soap. What that might look like when asking a student to perform phoneme isolation, the question might be, where does the sound t come in the word cat? Of course, the answer is the last sound. One note that cannot be overlooked or underemphasized. In order for a student to isolate phonemes, they must understand the concept of sequence. They must then have the academic vocabulary that represents sequence, such as first, middle, last, or first, second, third. When we ask a student what is the last sound, or what is the first sound, or what is the beginning sound, if they do not understand that concept, they will not be able to perform understanding of phoneme isolation when we require it in sequence. Blending comes next. Moving up the pyramid, we come to a slightly more complex phonemic awareness skill, blending. Blending is basically combining sounds. It involves listening to pull together isolated phonemes to create words. The process requires a student to hold individual elements in their mind as the word is created, therefore challenging the student's active working memory. When beginning readers sound out a word, they use letter sound knowledge to say each sound in a word, b, a, t, and then they blend the sounds quickly to read the word, bat. What might that look like if we were asking the student to perform phonemic blending? It could be, blend the sounds k, a, t into the word cat. Segmenting, the focus of this professional development and the focus of our intervention. Segmenting is the third layer in the pyramid. It is the ability to take the spoken word and break it into the phonemes. So the opposite of blending. Blending was giving the phonemes and asking for the word. Now we're giving the word and asking for the phonemes. In a segmentation activity, students are given a word like mad. Then they segment it or stretch the phonemes. D. As they're saying the sounds, they can extend a single finger for every phoneme they hear, starting with the thumb. Lastly, they blend the phonemes together as they bring their hand back to their chest and say the word mad. I know you can't see this done, but I'm certain that you can imagine it or have done it in the past. The student would use their hand beginning with their thumb and sound out. What are the sounds in the word mad? D. Mad, making a fist. Now we're moving up to the top of the pyramid and the 3 phoneme manipulation skills that make up the most complex. Manipulation of phonemes includes even more advanced skills, the skills of addition, deletion, and substitution. They are the top 3 layers and are generally more challenging than segmenting and blending. These manipulation skills require a student to hold the phonemes in their working memories long enough to isolate a specific phoneme and then add, delete, or substitute. These types of activities are an excellent way to build refined phonemic awareness, particularly for students who may have already mastered segmentation and blending. We're going to look deeper into the skills within manipulation, just so that we expand our understanding, but we know that our intervention will focus on segmenting only. Phoneme addition. It involves adding phonemes to a given word to produce a new word. So for instance, starting with the word we add the phoneme k to the end and it turns into week. Phoneme addition can be done with more complex words as well. Say starting with the word bell and adding the phoneme T turns it into belt. A question for a student might be, what word do you have if you add w to n? Win. Phoneme deletion. On the other side, starting with the word guide and deleting the final phoneme d creates the word guy. A more complex example of phoneme deletion might include removing one phoneme from a 2-sound blend, such as start with the word blast, delete the initial phoneme b, starts in the new word or results in the new word last. A question to ask a student might be, what is the word price without p? Rice is the answer. Finally, phoneme substitution. The most advanced of all the manipulation skills in the pyramid requires that a student know how to both delete and add phonemes. In a phoneme substitution exercise, a student might be asked to drop the short I in kit and replace it with the long I sound. When they do, kit becomes kite. This is done through intricate steps that are performed automatically and without conclusions for strong, fluent readers. These steps include recognizing the component parts of the known word, isolating a specific phoneme, deleting that phoneme, adding the new phoneme, and blending the phonemes together to say the new word. Did you notice that these steps include every one of the lower 5 in the pyramid? That would be why it's at the top and the most complex. A question that you might ask a student when they are producing phoneme substitution would be, the word is crush. Can you change the sh to m? Of course, the answer is mush. We move now to our focus of this professional development and intervention instruction, that is phoneme segmentation fluency. The remainder of the professional development will address assessment of phoneme seg, as well as explicit intervention instruction of phoneme segmentation and practice. I have included on several of the slides some research snips. They really tie back to what we heard at the beginning of this PD as well as the LNF and LSF PD, that the National Reading Panel concluded that an emphasis be placed on phoneme segmentation. This particular snip discusses Teaching young readers to segment words into individual phonemes appears to be as effective in helping them learn to read as instruction in both segmenting and blending. And while blending is an essential skill for use in decoding, emphasis placed on segmenting of words into phonemes is giving you a higher yield. Let's talk about assessing for initial placement, seeing where kids are, as well as the process for assessing progress monitoring. This assessment is orally presented by the teacher. The student does not have any stimulus in front of them. As the teacher, you will want to have probes ready and copied in front of you to take notes. I'll be providing 4 of those probes for you for the months of March, April, May, and June, allowing us to all give a common assessment. They'll be contained in our Teams folder. You see here probes 1 and 2. You'll have them copied for each student, writing the student's name and ready to take your notes. You will need a 1-minute timer, and you'll want to hold the recording copy so that the student is not able to see you as you take your notes. You have your recording copy in front of you, shielded so the student cannot see, and you begin by saying, I'm going to say a word. After I say it, I want you to tell me all the sounds in the word. So if I say Sam, you would say S, A, M. Let's try one. Tell me the sounds in mop. If the student correctly produces the sounds, you say very good. If the student is incorrect, you provide one more model by saying, the sounds in mop are m, a, p. Your turn. Tell me the sounds in mop. From there, whether correct or incorrect, you move on and say, okay, here's your first word. You tell the student the first word and then begin your stopwatch. If the student does not say a sound segment after 3 seconds, then you move to the second word and mark that first word as a 0 with no sounds produced. Let's take a look at our example. After giving the opening speech, I would give the student the word pear, start my stopwatch. If the student says nothing after 3 seconds, then I would prompt with sit. See if the student gives me a prompt. As the student says the sounds, you want to mark the response onto your scoring sheet. You're going to underline every correctly produced sound. So if you said bad and the student said b, a, d, we mark it with 3 lines. If the student produces an incorrect sound, put a slash through it. As soon as the student finishes saying the sound, you give the next word as quickly as you can and as clearly as you can. The discontinue rule is this. If the student does not get any sounds correct in words 1 through 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then that's a discontinue and a score of 0. If the student does not provide the next sound segment within 3 seconds, that's the pause, you give the next word. And then if the student provides the initial sound only, you give another 3 seconds to see if the student would produce the others. So in other words, I give the word coat. 3. And then they say k. I would say, again in my mind, 1, 2, 3, before moving on to spin. If a sound is skipped, in other words, the student does not voice any sound, then you put a slash through it. For example, if I said coat, the student would have said k, t, and I would have slashed through O because I did not hear the sound. At the end of 1 minute, you stop presenting the words and record a double slash, as I've done here. You add the number of sound segments that were produced correctly and recorded in the total. So when we're looking at the example, here we would have had 3 produced correctly. This was an error that we'll go over in the next slide. So this is a 3 out of 6 possible. Here we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 6, and I continue to record that for each line, adding it up for a total of 32 out of 75. Now let's look at what constitutes a correct sound segment. The first would be complete. So sounding every potential phoneme available. The word is bad, b-a-d. Also correct is an incomplete segment. So the student would have perhaps blended together two sounds. Here's the example. The word is mine, m-eine. It is still correct because we were able to hear the sounds, they just were not segmented. Overlapping segmentation, our example here is the word is woke. Woe, oak. This is how we mark it. The student voiced woe and then oak. Again, correct. A word where the student produces the schwa sound, which we definitely want to prevent that habit, that poor habit in instruction, but in assessment, it is not counted as an error. So for example, the student might have said, the word is bad, ba-a-de. That's that schwa sound. It is still correct. Additions, here's our example. The word is sign. The student said, s-I-n-s, added the S. An addition is not an error. We do not count off for articulation and dialect. So if a student is mispronouncing due to either of these, that is not an error. Here's our example. The word is noise. The student says n, oi, th. That would be an articulation error, not counted against the student. And then students who are doing a long continuous blending, but still voicing all the sounds. So the example given here is the word is rest. The student says rest. Okay, still not an error. Counts all, each of those sounds were present. What is an error? What is an incorrect segment? An omission is incorrect. So the word is coat. The student says k-t. That was an omission and an error. No segmentation, which happens frequently. The word is lock. The student says lock. You mark that as completely voiced, but all in error. A segment mispronunciation. Here's the example. The word is meat. The student says m-e-t. You put a slash through the incorrect sound, and if you have the time and are able, you write what the student did voice for further error analysis. What is the benchmark score for both kinder and first grades? It is the same for these two grades. It is 41 sounds correct in 1 minute. As mentioned with LNF and LSF, that is also a core goal. It is the same for intervention. And once a student reaches that benchmark, that constitutes them exiting from intervention. How do you prepare for phoneme segmentation, fluency intervention, instruction, and practice? After administering your initial placement assessment and identifying students who are falling below that benchmark of 41 correct sounds within a minute, you'll want to form small groups of 4 or 5 students. You'll then schedule those small groups for 15-minute intervention blocks and have your daily oral word lists ready for you that will support the instructional routine that we'll be talking about. And then you want to prepare your selected practice activity. This research quote speaks to time dedicated to phonemic awareness and phonemic segmentation. Studies that produce the strongest results engage students with phonemic awareness activities between a total of 5 to 18 hours. We are providing opportunities to focus on phonemic awareness, specifically PSF, outside of core. So we are increasing the total amount of time that a student experiences practice in PA. What happens during the 15-minute instructional intervention session? You want to seat the students so that you can see each of their faces, and of course they can see you. You will use the PSF instructional routine, coming next in the slide. You'll give then a practice activity and then dismiss the students. Let's go back to 1 here, seating the students so that you can see their face. This research SNPs addresses that connection to being able to see how they are voicing and through their mouth and the way that they're moving their mouth. So focus attention on how the mouth changes when pronouncing different phonemes. Focusing attention on the changes that take place in the mouth as words are pronounced is an effective way to identify phonemes. By helping students notice the position and movement of their lips and tongue, teachers can increase ability to identify, count, and segment phonemes. You may recognize this as the work of an SLP, and you would be correct. So SLPs are also working on phonemic awareness with students who qualify for that specific need in their IEP. Here's the instructional routine. You can see that its format is the same as LNF and LSF, and much of the routine itself is similar as well. You prepare your practice list, and then you use the signaling procedure. You have your closed fist, fingers facing you. There is no wait time in this particular. Every second that you sound a phoneme, you hold up a finger, moving from left to right. That way the student's perspective is the correct print order. And you say, you're going to practice saying sounds in words. I'll say a sound in the word. Each time I hold up a finger, you'll say the sound in the word. I'll model how to say the sounds in 2 words. I'll say a sound each time I hold up a finger. My turn. The teacher models with several words and then offers the student your turn and begins to read the prompts, allowing students their turn to segment the words. We have a correction procedure that follows the correction procedure we use for all our intervention, which is my turn, your turn. When you hear an error, which also includes a non-response, silence, then you model by saying my turn. Using the signaling procedure with your fingers, you model the correct segmentation of the word, and then you have the students repeat it with their turn. Following that, you back up 2 words, again, to move across, to give the opportunity for the students to move across the errors and move across the error and respond correctly. Once you are through with the words that you've selected for the day, you can give paired practice, selected practice. There is a video example of this routine at the end of this presentation if you would like to see it in action. With phoneme segmentation, just like systematic instruction of anything that we do in intervention, there is a progression. This can be, and we heard this from our initial quote, a very complex concept for students to master. So one way to support the students is to go from the most simple to more complex. And that would be presenting your practice and your instructional routine starting with words only containing 2 phonemes. Here would be a list that would help you with that. So the word be, b, e, go, g, o. This way the student is aware that there are only 2 and they're able to try to place those 2 sounds within the 2 opportunities. Once the students have shown some mastery of 2 phonemes, you would move to 3 and then 4, perhaps words with more phonemes, and then finally a mix. And the mix may come prior to 4. This is one example of a word list to help you think of those words. You can find them on the internet, or you can make your own. Practice. We'll start with this research snip. The use of manipulatives to help students acquire phonemic awareness. Manipulatives can be effective aids in teaching phonemic awareness. Having students move letters as they pronounce phonemes in given words was a key activity in a program of phonemic awareness instruction that produced significant transfer of learning to reading and spelling. Here are some suggestions for practice activities. Once again, please use your experience, your expertise, and your creativity. Those that I've used before definitely have a visual and/or physical support. So an Elkonin box, which would be a slide and slide, excuse me. In this case, there are some activities out of Florida Center for Reading Research that give the picture. This would be cheese, and already have the Elkonin box with the division of the phonemes. So it would be ch, ease. So there's a slide and say. Connecting cubes are another visual. Connecting cubes would represent the number of phonemes in the word, and we separate with colors. So this would be a 2 phoneme word. Say we did B earlier, B, E. A 3 phoneme, a 4, and so forth. It gives students an additional visual as they are trying to isolate and segment the phonemes. You might do clapping, snapping, or hopping phonemes. For example, ch, e, s, or snapping. Head, shoulders, knees, and toes could be another way for total physical response to segment phonemes. Progress monitoring, how we track and report. Just like LNF and LSF, this is a skill that can accelerate very quickly. And you may wish to administer a probe every 2 weeks. That's fine, and I'll offer you some additional probes so that you don't have to think of your own words. But we are only requiring Progress Monitor be complete and the data entered once a month, the third Thursday, reported in a new tabs in your Teams folder called Psf PM, Phoneme Segmentation Fluency Progress Monitoring. The assessment process is the same as the initial test. You do use a full randomized assessment, meaning words that are comprised of multiple lengths in their phoneme segmentation. And again, I will be providing you those 4 probes for us all to use in common way. This is what the tab looks like. Here's your full folder. Phonics for reading, fluency, rewards, letter naming, letter sound, and here is phoneme segmentation fluency. You are only entering the number of correct phonemes produced in 1 minute. So for the example labeled February, here are your students. This student had 12 correct in 1 minute, 7 correct in a minute, 8 correct in 1 minute. As you enter the initial and/or progress monitoring, that is the only number you are entering in the cell next to the student's name. And a reminder, as the students reach the benchmark of 41, they are exited from phoneme segmentation fluency. Thank you for listening in. If you would, please notify your program specialist when you have completed this professional development, and they will help you with next steps. Please contact any of us with questions that you have. There are video examples following this slide. You will see a video example of a teacher administering PSF, and you will watch as they take notes. You will see a student learning how to PSF during an assessment, and you will see the instructional routine. I do apologize for the quality of these videos. They are taken from YouTube, and they are the best examples I could find, but the quality is not so nice as we would like for it to be. Thank you for attending. Thank you.
We're going to do some phoneme segmentation. So I'm going to tell you a word like cat, and I want you to give me the sounds like k, at. Are you ready? Okay. Tell me the sounds you hear in sat. A. Good. Tell me the sounds you hear in tip. Okay. 10. Good. Fun. Mom. Okay, remember. I want you to say all the sounds you hear. Pan. What do you hear in pan? What sounds? Good. Cob. Good. Gum. Bag. Fox. Log. Mom. Sun. Pot. Okay. Jet. Okay. Clip. Clip. Yep, all the sounds. Hat. Okay. Brat. Drag. Lip. Good, thanks.
Okay. We are going to say the sounds in words. Listen to me say all the sounds in the word fan. And Listen to another word. Jump. J, a, Your turn. Say all the sounds in soap. Very good, saying all the sounds in soap. I'm going to say some more words. I will say the word, and you will say all the sounds in the word. Hall.
All.
Song. Count.
Count.
Wave.
Wave.
Mind.
Mind.
Mouse.
Mouse.
Birds.
Birds.
Moon.
Moon.
Remember to tell me all the sounds in the word. Noise.
Noise.
Since.
Inch.
Give.
Give.
Knee.
Knee.
Creek.
Creek.
Foot. Nice.
Nice.
Runs.
Runs.
Join.
Join.
Plant.
Plant.
Main.
Eat.
Have.
Have.
Share.
Share.
Card number 6, template for phoneme segmentation. You're going to practice saying the sounds in words. I'll say a word. Each time I hold up a finger, you'll say a sound in the word. I'll model how to say the sounds in 2 words. I'll say a sound each time I hold up my finger. My turn. Pan. Pig.
Egg.
It's
Pig.
supposed to be my turn. Okay, I'm going to model 2, remember? Okay, let's do that again. My turn. Pan. Nope, my turn. Pig. Egg. Your turn. Pan.
Pan. Pan.
Pig.
Egg. Pig.
Hog.
Hog. Hog.
Home.
Home. Home.
Run.
Run.
Okay, my turn. Your turn. Run. Okay, my turn. Run. Your turn. Run. Jump. Okay, stop, you guys. What's your name?
I do BJ.
BJ. BJ, look at me, please. BJ. BJ, look at me, please. Okay, when I show you my finger like this, that's when you give me the sounds, okay? We need to do it all together. Okay, BJ? Thank you. Okay, everybody should be looking up at me. The word is jump. Very nice. Okay, listen, it's my turn. BJ, Frankie, look at me. Jump. Okay, your turn. Jump. Okay, on. Okay, my turn. On. Your turn. On. Okay, run. BJ, look up here. Jump. On. Jeep. Desk. Ran. Oh, let's do it again. Leap.